And welcome back. So it's been an exciting time here on Morning Live. Just listening to some of the newer entrants for the 2024 poll, speaking to us, telling us about what their hopes and ambitions are for the country, and also why you should consider lending them your vote. Now, for the first time, South Africans will vote on 3 ballot papers to ensure that independent candidates who are contesting the upcoming elections under no party affiliation are actually catered for. Now, several independent candidates will contest for seats in the National Assembly and in the provincial legislatures. Independent candidates will be on the same ballot as political parties. And this morning, we're going to find out why they are standing as independent candidates and, of course, which major policy issues they will address if they are elected. And we'll introduce you to the parties in just to the independent candidates in just a short while. But they are with us this morning: Anele Mda, Phathela, Zackie, Achmat, and Lovemore, Ndou. But let's just quickly take a look at some of the priorities that they have highlighted for us, starting with Anele Mda. And this is what Anele is saying. She wants to focus on ethical and accountable leadership, eradicate unemployment and professional youth displacement, create an inclusive and growing economy, also address challenges faced by people living with disabilities, and maintain immigration laws, border management, and asylum processing. Those are some of the priority areas for Anele Mda. Moving on to Faith, and this is Phathela. And Phathela focusing on endorsing a year of rest and a year of jubilee. Then education, employment, eradicating corruption, and protecting our public protectors. These are the priorities that Phathela wishes to focus on. Lovemore, Ndou, for Lovemore, these are the priorities: corruption and BEE, housing crisis, crime and farm killings, education, and land grabs. And finally, for Zackie Achmat, these are his priorities: fix the state, fix energy, accountability, reclaim parliament, and of course, build our communities. So there you have it for the 4 independent candidates that we'll be focusing on this morning. And as we do the usual sachet across here, moving over to the candidates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you so much for coming through this morning. And of course, I'm going to start by giving each of you an opportunity to basically set the scene for us, telling us about why you've decided to stand as an independent candidate for this election. And also, we've touched on the priorities, but what it is that's most important for you. Anele Mda, let's start with you.
Thank you, Sakina. Good morning to your viewers this morning and everyone who is here in studio with us, and good morning to my fellow independent candidates. 30 years of democracy in South Africa is a long time. It's a milestone that we have to pat ourselves on the shoulder and begin to imagine that there's so much that we've done, there's so much that we've achieved, but certainly there's a lot that is going wrong. It's going wrong at the core of what ought to define the essence and the validity and the eligibility of what a working democracy would be to the people of South Africa. One of the reasons that as we reflect in these 30 years of our democracy, that we need, one of the things that we need to concentrate and focus on is locating where is the state of our country. Whilst we are having a maturing democracy, is it maturing with a progressive, developmental evolution of the society that is able to, capture the imagination of the dreams and the aspirations of the people of South Africa? Or are we having an empty shell of a democracy that is maturing, yet it is not able to valuably be connected with the lives and the evolution of the people that is supposed to carry with? And I think as I took the decision to stand as an independent candidate, key amongst the issues that I was focusing at was the fact that we are having a serious challenge of the relevance of democracy losing its value as it is supposed to characterize the developmental outlook of the people of South Africa, which are able to attribute that developmental outlook and pursuit into connecting it with exactly the purpose of what democracy is supposed to be. And I think when we took the decision to say we will have to stand up as individual people, or when I took that decision myself, at the core of every single reason was the fact that there is a need now for new leadership to emerge. Not emerging only because we want to influence the space, but emerge because there is a serious lack and decaying of leadership in South Africa. And if we can act as though there is something that we may delay rising up for, there might be nothing else to save after we have not done the right by our democracy.
All good use of your 3 minutes there, Anele Mda. Let's go to one of the gentlemen joining us on Zoom now, Mr. Lovemore. Ndou, let's start with you. You have 3 minutes, and this is an opportunity to tell South Africa why they should consider giving you their vote.
Good morning, everybody. Basically, I'm running for, as an independent because I believe, the country, is in trouble. Our country, is at a brink of collapse. And if nothing is done now, eventually we're going to reach a point of no return. We're going to end up like, our neighboring country, Zimbabwe. So I'm running as an independent with the view that, once I secure a seat in the National Assembly, then I'll be in a position, to scrutinize and judge, the activities, policies, and legislation of the government. I'll be in a position to decide matters of national interest while also representing the interests of the people of Limpopo, which is the province where I come from. Then I'll be able to propose, debate, and vote on the bills and amendments. But above all, I'll be able to operate as the voice of the voiceless and act as a check on the power of the government of the day. Obviously, I'm campaigning on a number of issues. However, the questions of unemployment and corruption are the major issues in this campaign. So, truth is, it's unfortunate, but our black leaders have failed our nation. If you take a look at the consumer price index, it continues to rise under the ANC's leadership. Perhaps more significantly, the nation's broader underlying inflation rate, it continues to skyrocket under the failed leadership of this government. Millions of men and women are out of employment. Many of them can't secure jobs that they are qualified for because of the catered deployment policy of the ANC. Our women are left to prostitute themselves to feed their children. Our men are left to resort to crime to feed their families. There are no effective youth employment programs in place. Our youth are left to resort to crime and experiment with drugs like Nyaupe, because they got nothing else to look forward to. They are made to feel like they are nobodies and that they have no worth. You would have to, accept that, after 30 years, it is clear that this government has no plans at all to stimulate jobs. Yet our leaders continue to live well due to corruption. We need to get rid of corruption.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Ndou. Phathela, let's hear from you.
I greet you all in the powerful name of freedom and justice. There's a calling upon my life to serve the nations as a member of parliament. God is saying that my people are crying. They say that we are suffering under the current leadership. Whether we vote or we don't vote, it's all the same. He said, go and comfort them. Avail yourself to serve the nations as a member of parliament and go there and make laws that will make people say, kumnandi e South Africa, just like in South Africa. Humunati Africa wura. So I'm doing this out of a calling, and this calling came in 2022. And one of the things that God has put in my heart that are a burning issue is corruption. Corruption is blocking a lot of things. It's affecting education, it's affecting everything. And the roots of corruption are in parliament. And look, now we are going through elections right now. I want you to know, as people of South Africa, that me and you together, I cannot do it alone. I cannot take out corruption alone. You have the responsibility to vote in a godly government, to vote in righteous leaders, because a righteous leader will be able to deal with corruption. That's the first thing that South Africans need to do. Then once we get there, then we are able to handle matters the right way. Already, the way elections are happening, I wouldn't say these elections are free and fair. There's a lot of corruption areas where corruption can happen within the elections, the way the elections are happening. Take, for example, with the special votes, where IEC is able to go to someone's house and allow them to vote. That is a breeding area for corruption, because you don't know which other homes they're going to go to. IEC also, they're doing their best, I understand. They have this thing called mobile voting stations, where they're saying people who are staying up the mountains will come to you, don't come down to us. But who's going to be following them as they go up the mountains to do that? So these are breeding grounds for corruption as well. And if we don't get the right leaders into parliament, our country cannot go in the right direction. So these are the kind of things that I wanted to highlight to people, to say, look, let us go and vote. Some of us are tired of voting, you understand? We think like, no, this is just it's a waste of time. But let me tell you, if you have to choose between not voting and voting for the devil, like not voting is wrong, and voting for the devil is wrong, but rather go vote for the devil, go vote for the lesser devil. Because if you don't vote, you know, there's this other tweet that was going on media, on the social media, they're saying that, guys, we are all agreeing, right? We are all voting the ruling party out. Then someone tweeted and said, it's the same. Even if you vote them out, the IEC will vote them back in. So, but it was just a joke. But the truth is that if you don't go and vote, someone might vote for you. So let us all go and make our votes so that the right people can go into parliament and make the laws for the country.
All right, thanks so much. Zackie, Achmat, and why should South Africans consider voting for you?
Morning. It's a very painful time globally and in our country. What we have is a great deal of populism, a great deal of hate being spread, division being fostered. And if you couple that, if you ask why that is the case, it is because representative democracy is failing us globally. The political parties and leaders that we elect are either beholden to big money interests, or if they're not, they building their lives around state capture and corruption. You showed that I have four things: fix the state, build our communities, reclaim parliament. Now, for me, those three things we must know. I can't clear up unemployment. I can't fix the state. I can't fix the state by myself. Over the last 7 years in Unite Behind, we have tackled process of deep, deep corruption and exposed MPs, judges, one judge, companies like Mackenzie Mabunda's Siyaya and so on. And that convinced me that unless we get into Parliament and do the difficult, boring work of Parliament to go through reports and so on, we are not going to be able to change our country. And the most important way to change the country is not for me to be the voice of anyone in Parliament, but to bring the voices of working class people into Parliament, like our first Parliament did in 1994. I would say critical for me is the building of a movement outside. Without it, no independent can have influence. I also commit to work with people. If you look at the campaign forums that I've helped set up over time, one is the Amachochombe and Backyarders Forum. As we go into winter now, we know there's going to be floods. And I just want to tell a quick story. During my campaign, a man came to me and said, come and look at my shack in the floods. I went, and he has a disabled wife, Letitia Mbuka. He has a son with autism, Musa Pani. And the incredible suffering that these people go through. Musa can't speak, and he's only comfortable on the ground. And when there's floods, his hysteria becomes incredible. So, here you have someone who's been in the shack, and he'd been like that for 10 years without support from the Department of Social Development, the city, province, and national government. So for me, the critical thing is to build a movement in informal settlements, to build a movement among people living with disability.
So those are your 3 minutes. So there we have it, the opening statements from our 4 independent candidates, and we'll discuss more of the issues that they want to prioritize. But we need to take a quick break here on Morning Live, and then we'll get back. And don't forget sending us your questions for the independent candidates, your views. That speaks to our question of the day. And we are asking you to tell us, as is up on the screen right now, what your thoughts are about that at Morning Live SABC. And welcome back. Thanks so much for being with us here on Morning Live. And thanks for actually engaging our question of the day, as you always do. And of course, we'll put some of your questions to the panel. And it's a panel of independent candidates who are vying for the poll on the 29th of May this year. So there will be 3 ballot papers. And of course, you'll have an opportunity to choose the election, the independent candidate of your choice. But here's our question this morning. And we're simply asking you about your views. You know, we've always done this with the smaller parties as well, talking about what exactly you're going to be focusing on. All right, let's get straight to it. Shorty Signolo says, morning SK and Leanne. If they fail to secure seats in the National Assembly and provincial legislatures respectively, are they going to join other political formations, or are they intending to form their own political parties after the elections? So that question, I think, okay, a good one to kick off the conversation, because many people are asking about the effectiveness. How effective do you think you are going to be as an independent candidate in the current political setup? You know, given that we didn't see the sort of electoral reform that I suppose many independent candidates would have liked to see. How do you think you are going to contend with that, Anele?
Firstly, Sakina, I think we must maybe find a way of having a public that is very positive and progressive in their thinking. They shouldn't think from a point of what if we do not make it. They should think from a point of what if we make it. Because remember, if our outlook is the one that collectively understands the state of our country as it stands right now, we are definitely a people that should be saying we need those voices to even be more than they are right now, because we all know what the party political hegemony has done over South Africa. And maybe to address that question, the effectiveness, the fallacy about the notion that says there isn't any qualitative input or role that independent candidates will make in parliament by virtue of us being individuals, it has got no basis at all. And I would say that because using my own experience of having been a member of parliament before, I would say such a question, if it had logic in it, you would then need to ask political parties that have lower than maybe 2 members of parliament, or 2 members of parliament and below, ask them what is their value in parliament, because they only have, over a parliament that has got 400 seats, they only have 2 MPs. So what is the value of those MPs when they are in parliament? But I think also the attitude of looking at us as independent candidates must not be from a point that says you are just a mere one person. We do have a legislated bill in this country of using dagga for medicinal purposes. It was a private member's bill that was sponsored by the late IFP member of parliament, Ambrosini, who led it to be now a gazetted law in South Africa. So you cannot think by mere fact of looking at an individual, think that the role that they are going to bring to parliament and the impact they're going to have is going to be so minimalistic that it is not going to have any effect. We bring in parliament various diverse leadership qualities, attributes and experiences that we have over the years exercised, and we are leaders of our own right in different areas, and that is an accumulated leadership attribute that has been tested by so many experiences. And us going to parliament is not because we have since found something new or a new hobby. It's because the time that we live in is calling for leadership, requires of people of South Africa, men and women who see the damage that is happening to our country, to rise to all areas of significant strategic importance, so that we can be able to add our voices in making sure that we reshape South Africa in a different form, to ensure that there's a new cultivation of leaders that are honest in public office and accountable.
Lovemore, Ndou, Shorty Signola wants to know, how does he, get the assurance that voting for an independent is actually worthwhile?
Look, I think I need to first address this issue. I can understand that, it's for the first time, that independent candidates are running in South Africa, and a lot of people, the community is kind of confused as to, what role can independent candidates play. I should start by saying, look, I've been living in Australia for 27 years before I moved back to South Africa. It's a first world country. And I have to tell you, independent candidates play a big role, particularly when they unite and stand together. So in terms of, what would I do if I don't get enough votes? Well, I was already in the process of putting a party together to be called BAPSA, Building a Better South Africa, with the aim of contesting the 2026 and 2029 elections, when then Ramaphosa made an announcement that for the first time independent candidates can run. That's when I decided I might as well run now as an independent candidate. So whether I get enough votes or not, you're going to be seeing more of Lovemore. I'm not going anywhere. So in the next elections, the 2026 and 2029, I'll be running as a party called BAPSA. Now, in terms of, working, with other parties or working with other independents, I'm open to working with other candidates and, independent candidates, and particularly, unrepresented parties. Although I might have my own opinions and concerns, with some of the parties, the unrepresented parties, I would rather not judge until I see their performances. So the thing is, we might, I always say, we might not, we might have different philosophies or policies, or ideas, but, one thing for sure, one thing that I'm certain with is that, we are all advocating for change of government. So we are all concerned about, improving the quality of life of all ordinary South Africans. We are all advocating for a better South Africa for all. We just need to find a way to make it work. So I'm open to working with other independent candidates, and I'm open to working, with unrepresented parties. But I'll be concerned, about working with some of the, the current leading parties, like the ANC, unless if they change their way they behave and the way they do business. I'm not, I won't be working with a party like the ANC, the EFF, the DA, and the MK, because I don't believe in what they stand for. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, I'm open to working with other independents and other, unrepresented parties.
Faith, your response to that question?
All right, thank you for that question. It was recently revealed that when I get to Parliament, I should work with the ruling party. I'm not going to Parliament to fight them. And also, I'm a government auditor by profession. So I've never held any political office in my life. And I've seen the need for me to have a senior politician who can mentor me. And I looked amongst the represented parties and say, who can I approach to mentor me, to show me the ins and outs of politics and the dynamics of our country? And I identified Ramaphosa as someone that I could approach to mentor me. A good mentor is not someone who's never made mistakes. A good mentor is someone who's willing to show you their mistakes and help you not to repeat those mistakes. The other thing is that the ruling party is like a Moses movement. And God has shown me that there's a Joshua movement that is rising up. And if you look at Moses and Joshua, they were working together. They were not opposing each other. And Joshua did not become the president of the nation until Moses died. So my role as I go to Parliament, even though I'm an independent candidate, we are going there to influence decisions. I'm not willing to join any party. I'm not willing to sign any coalition agreement to say I'll always vote in your favor. But God is sending me there to help. And I believe that if the ruling party, whoever it will be, if they reject my help, they'll be rejecting the one who has sent me. Regarding a political party, God said to me, do not start a party unless there's a demand. There's so many new parties, and some of them are Christian. So I believe that South Africa should try them out first. And if they disappoint them, then they can come to me. And then I want to know, why do you want me to register a party? So I'm not going to register a party unless there's a demand.
All right, Zackie, your response to Shorty's question.
The most important thing is to look at our history. Under apartheid, in the worst days of apartheid, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, we had a Liberal Member of Parliament, Helen Suzman. Now, I don't share her ideology, but what she was critical to, she was in a party of white men, old white men, and she was Jewish and a woman. But she used her stand in Parliament to expose what was happening with pass laws, what was happening with detainees. She supported a number of bills, such as giving women the right to terminate their pregnancies, the decriminalization of homosexuality, and so on. So her example is a shining example of what an individual MP can do. I would like to serve on the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, because that is a very simple way to follow up what departments are doing, and particularly in the areas that I want to work, like commuter rail, SASA, and so on. What is important is everyone needs to follow. At the moment, we have a public service bill. It's passed through Parliament and it's waiting the signature of the President. It is a strengthening of the Public Service Commission. Similarly, we have a much more difficult piece of legislation that is going through now, that is in its final stages, called the Public Procurement Act. And one of the sets of problems there is that it opens up a new can of worms, tries to strengthen the BBE, broad-based black economic empowerment, without putting in the necessary safeguards. So in going to Parliament, I want to build a knowledge base. My campaign is based on Section 195 of the Constitution, which says we need to have an open, accountable, efficient, ethical public service. And this is what I've been working on for the last 18 months nearly, is assisting people to understand what Section 195 of the Constitution means, what the Municipal Systems Act means in terms of public participatory democracy and participatory governance. So I just want to pick up on one thing. For me, I think it's very dangerous to spread rumors about the IEC. We have to, if there's any problem with the IEC, we have to show evidence. My experience of the IEC since 1994 is that it's been the most reliable, open and honest institution. For us to say the IEC is a problem is to play in the hand of Jacob Zuma and others. So what I would like to say to people, give me your vote. You can still vote for your party and you can vote for me. That is the beauty of the legislation. I will be accountable, not to a political party, and I'll never join one.
Okay.
I might understand.
All right, that's your time, Zackie. So I'm trying to be as fair and equitable to all of you, giving you all equal amount of time to speak and make your point. But of course, one thing that I want to pick up on, Anele, in your manifesto, for example, you highlight ethical and accountable leadership, and that's something that I've picked up throughout. All of you talk about corruption, all of you talk about accountability. How exactly are you hoping to make sure that you hold people accountable to a better standard that we've seen up until now?
I think one of the most important things, Sakina, that we have experienced, all of us as South Africans, is that there is never willingness in addressing issues that are of unethical behaviors and conduct, especially when they come from public office bearers who are politicians. There's always a way of looking for administrative scapegoats whenever we're supposed to hold a politician accountable. I think it is high time that we do not allow these double standards that are being applied in as far as letting go of politicians. Firstly, I believe that we need to have an established rapid courts that must deal with issues that relate to public office, especially where monies of the state have been wrongly used. You see this thing of prolonging cases when it is politicians that are involved. You find that it's a way of buying them time to a point where either a person, a natural a consequence of life happens, and a person, that's how they escape. And when they have escaped, there is no recourse for the state to still recoup money. We must go as far as ensuring that public office bearers, they even go and go as far as having their pension being withheld from being released for as long as there is something that a person committed as an offense, especially when it deals with, it revolves around corruption in particular, where there is embezzlement of money. People must face consequences, and those consequences, Sakina, they must be financial in their standing, because that is the only way we can be able to ensure that we tighten the grip and we force people not just only to be in office to preside over the resources of the state, but to be honest in how they preside over those resources, knowing very well that upon every single turn, when they are caught on the wrong, the consequences will be dire for them, and they will affect their families. They also affect their welfare as well.
Faith, how are you going to hold people accountable?
Hold people accountable?
In Parliament.
Okay. So I believe that the citizens are the ones who must hold members of Parliament accountable because they have voted for them. What I would like to say to the citizens is that this is our democracy, and we have to own it, just as the IEC say. But now, we've got Chapter 9 institutions who are there to assist us to strengthen our democracy. But I've realized that Chapter 9 institutions are not independent, because the heads of these institutions, they are appointed by a politician. The president is a politician. Like, for example, now IEC is running elections, but one of the contestants appointed them. So where is the independence in that? Public protector as well. She's on the fire line many times, because once she starts revealing things in the office of the president, people will fight with her. So what I'm proposing to South Africans and to members of Parliament is that we need to establish another body that is going to appoint heads of Chapter 9 institutions. I call it a spiritual government. We need to have two governments, the administrative one that we have right now, and establish another one called spiritual government. And this government, the people who are going to serve here, they will not be appointed through the IEC process. I don't have details how it's going to happen, but we need another body that can appoint our Chapter 9 institutions and also hold the president of the administrative government accountable as well.
All right. Zackie, Achmat, so you say rooting out corruption is one of your priorities. How exactly are you going to go about doing that? I mean, you spoke about the committee that you'd like to serve on, but how else would you go about doing that?
Well, at the moment, I'll talk first about what we've done so far, right behind Zackie, myself. We've managed to get several MPs, including a deputy minister, disciplined by the ethics committee. Of course, the discipline is very bad, but right now the rules of Parliament says that if you lay a complaint against an MP or a member of Parliament, that complaint must remain secret. The investigation, of course, is secret. The person who responds, you don't have a right to answer as a complainant or reply as a complainant. The entire hearing is secret. So we're in court to change that rule because it's unconstitutional. The Constitution makes it very clear that our Parliament must be open on everything except in circumstances where national security is affected. In the work that I'll do, the critical thing is to remember that there's always two parties or more to corruption. It's the private companies like Baines, a whole bunch of them that were involved in state capture and remain. There's a company called Vaslo España that benefited enormously from the locomotives that were to tour. So our duty is, first and foremost, to expose every one of them, to study the Auditor General reports in detail and find out, because the Auditor General report just says there's been a expenditure that is fruitless and wasteful. There's been irregular expenditure. It doesn't name names. An MP can ask, who's the person? An MP can pay, who's the company? An MP can then open up, and that's what my job is going to be. And I'll work with anyone who's prepared to do that. Here, I want to say something about working with parliaments. Our country is facing a great deal of instability. And our duty is to ensure that a national coalition is stable and in the interest of the working class. I believe that if we fix the state for the working class, we fix it
Right,
for everyone
Zackie.
in the country.
That's your time. Lovemore, to you. And you say that corruption must stop and you will not hold back in calling out, the perpetrators. So how are you going to deal with that in Parliament?
Well, to get rid of corruption, firstly, you need to get rid of, policies, like the catered deployment. It is through catered deployment that, we have unqualified, leaders holding, powerful positions. And it puts them in a position where even when they can see the corruption that is going around, they don't say anything because they don't want to lose their jobs. Don't ever think that, Ramaphosa is not aware or is not ashamed of, the corruption that's going on. He's aware of it, but he won't do anything because, if he says something, his own people are going to, expose him as well. You also need to get rid of, policies like the BEE. BEE is the cornerstone, of corruption.
No.
It is a failed, it's a failed policy, which is the trigger of an avalanche of corruption. It only benefits a handful, of the political connected black journalists and a select group of, white-owned big businesses and corporations. So it must be replaced with a policy that will allow broader participation in the economy by all people of South Africa, irrespective, of party affiliations. Alternatively, it has to be implemented and allowed to do what it was put in place to do in the first place, which is to allow, broader participation in the economy by all people. Obviously, to do that, we will need to ensure that, the rule of law remains sacrosanct. We have to ensure that, we have working legal systems. Currently we have a situation where our leaders, are the law unto themselves. There's no accountability. Look, I've been a student of a first world country, and I've seen how other countries deal with corruption. And I would like to apply my skills and learn it to South Africa. What Australia has taught me, is how to fight corruption and how to build and maintain infrastructures, how to care for the elderly, how to provide job security for the people, and to epitomize the value of education.
So that's your time, Lovemore. So we only have less than 2 minutes. So I'm going to give each of you 30 seconds. If you want to respond, Anele, I could hear that you were, not too happy about some of the responses. You can factor that in, but you've got 30 seconds. South Africa is watching. Why should people vote for you?
I believe that it is time that we take, all of us, we roll our sleeves and be at work to save South Africa, to reclaim South Africa, to restore South Africa. But it's also time that we must look at the previously marginalized groups. In my manifesto, I share light on the issues of people living with disabilities who have been pushed to the periphery, whom I believe they need to be prioritized so much in our democracy.
Faith?
South Africa, God is sending me as an answer to your prayers. So please remember me on the orange ballot paper, those of you who are going to be in Limpopo. For more information, contact me on faithtoparliament@gmail.com.
Zackie?
I think for me, our country is facing division. In the Western Cape in particular, the party stirring up hate between Black African and coloured people. I believe that working class unity is essential. I believe that a knowledge-based campaign is necessary. And I want to ask you to vote for me because I can and have held people accountable for many misdemeanors and many crimes.
Lovemore?
You should vote for me because I've got no other ulterior motive other than to save South Africa and lead South Africa out of the crisis created by the ANC. I stand for a corruption-free South Africa. I stand for a South Africa where the future of our children is guaranteed. A South Africa where you won't have to pay a bribe to secure a job. South Africa where the basic needs of our people are met.
That's it. That's our time. So there you have it. 4 independent candidates and interesting perspectives there raised by them. You will have an opportunity to vote for them.